All right, it's not all about motorcycles today. We are at the Airline History Museum at the Kansas City Downtown Airport. Let's talk about the planes they have here and the big one, the Connie, with Keith.
In 1985, a couple of guys were down at Richards-Gebaur Air Force Base in an office down there. They decided they should save a Connie, and they decided this is the Connie they should save. The Connie is the Lockheed Constellation. They took a bunch of guys retiring from TWA mostly down to the desert, and 9 weeks later they got this plane in flying edition. We think it was a pretty good flying edition because the FAA didn't like this flight back to Kansas City too much. But with a chase plane, they would allow it. The chase plane was a Piper Malibu, which is a lot slower airplane than this one. So this plane had to fly in circles and wait for its chase plane to catch up to it. So we think it was flying pretty well. They brought it back to Kansas City, and a couple of years later, they completely restored it and got it ready to go to air shows. They've been taking it to air shows almost every year ever since.
Keith, why don't I have a quick tour? What was the total seating capacity for this plane as it's configured here?
The average configuration is about 60 people. To buy a sleeping berth, you had to buy 2 first-class seats. In the 1950s, to fly across the Atlantic Ocean, you had to buy those 2 seats would cost $600 a piece. To fly across the Atlantic Ocean in the Concorde would be $6,000 a piece, which is about the same amount of money as the $600 back in the 50s. However, the Connie would take 13 hours to cross the ocean. The Concorde would take about 3 hours, so they didn't need sleeping berths to do that. Material for the first class seats were made by the company that made the material back in the 50s. And they donated this material to us, which was great for the museum. The first seat in the cockpit is the flight engineer's seat. He's probably the busiest guy in the cockpit because he had control of the power controls for the engine for the entire flight except for the landing and takeoff.
So you got 4 engines. How many horsepower per engine?
3,400. This airplane was used in 3 movies. The first movie was the movie Voyager about an airplane crash. The second movie was Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls with Jim Carrey. The third movie was the movie The Aviator about Howard Hughes.